Hey y'all, welcome back. I wanted to do a video this week on my experience in business school, what it was like getting my MBA, what it was like getting my MBA in New York, and specifically at my school. A couple weeks ago, I hit a year out of business school, which is actually crazy because it is flying by. Like the fact that I've been at my full-time job for 9 months now is kind of wild to me. But I feel like now that I'm a year out of business school, there's a lot of things that I did really well in that journey, but there's also some things that like if I could go back, probably would have done it differently. So I just wanted to give you some general tips on like before you go to business school, here's just some things to keep in mind just to like have the best experience and not stress yourself out too bad. Now, before I hop into the tips, I'll give you a little bit of background on me. So I graduated undergrad in 2018. I moved to Dallas to work for a software company. I was doing like solutions consulting. It was a lot of working with small businesses, building demos for salespeople. It was a pretty technical role. The pandemic hit in 2020. I was completely remote during the pandemic and it just got like very stressful. You're working alongside salespeople, like they have one goal and it's to sell, and it was just very high pressure. I also felt like I was working in the small business segment, so it was a lot of the same thing over and over again. Like it was the same 4 or 5 problems to solve, and I just really wanted to kind of stretch myself a little bit further. So I started studying for the GMAT in 2020 during the pandemic. I didn't do any of the programs like MLT or the consortium, so like that really wasn't a part of my story. I do suggest though, if you're from an underrepresented background or like have a passion for diversity, I do 100% recommend that you go through MLT or consortium. I just think that's like a pretty cool factor of it, to just come into business school knowing it takes a lot of that anxiety off of the first day of school when you don't know anyone and you're kind of like starting from scratch. The pandemic hit in 2020. I decided to just start studying for the GMAT. I knew I wanted to go to business school. I wasn't sure exactly when I wanted to go to business school, but when I took that GMAT in June 2020, I got a score back and was like, this will do, and I'm not taking the GMAT again. So I started applying in 2020 for attendance in 2021. I ultimately decided on Columbia Business School. So summer 2021, I packed up my Dallas apartment, drove it all to New York with my dad, and I lived in New York for 2 years to attend Columbia. I knew I wanted to do like media tech, and I think that Columbia was a really good option for that because they had a lot of media tech classwork. And now that I've graduated business school, that is what I'm doing currently. I'm in like a media tech strategy role that's all rolled into one. I also want to give like a quick preface. A lot of these tips are evergreen across the board, like you can use them across the board, but a lot of these tips come from my experience at Columbia specifically. So I'm talking about like our semesters or like Black Week or things like that. Those are things that might be specific to Columbia. They might be just called different things at other schools. Secondly, everyone's experience at business school is different. Some people love it, some people hate it. Don't take my tips or my advice as law, because your experience might be completely different, or you might value something completely different than I valued in business school. Just take it for what it is and don't try to debate what it is I'm saying. I'm literally just talking about my experience. Okay, so the first bucket that I really want to dive into is the academic side of things. Like, let's go ahead and get it out the way. I think when people describe business school, they say that you can really only focus on 2 out of 3 pillars, or otherwise you're just gonna like completely stress yourself out and not have an enjoyable experience. The 3 pillars are academic, professional, and social. My recommendation, honestly, truly, and once again, this is just my opinion, my recommendation is to really prioritize the professional and the social aspects of it before you prioritize academics. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't like go to class. I'm not saying that you shouldn't turn in your homework. All I'm saying is that I don't think that it's the best use of your time to like try to get A's, or like in business school terms, I think it was like high pass or like high pass plus. I can't remember what the exact term was, whatever the highest grade was. I don't think it's the best use of your time to try to get one of those in every single class that you're taking. I think that you should definitely focus on the classes that you're going to need after business school for whatever career that you're going into. The classes that I paid the most attention to were like strategy, statistics, analytics, and marketing. Those were my classes. Accounting, corporate finance, wasn't interested. I did what I could to take in as much as I possibly could from those classes, but like as far as stressing yourself out over them, I would not recommend it, especially because a lot of schools have what's called grade non-disclosures, which Look it up first. First off, don't go into school thinking that you're under grade non-disclosure, and you're not. A lot of schools, like Columbia specifically, had grade non-disclosure, which essentially means that you cannot share your grade with companies, and I believe alum too, until you graduated business school with a full-time offer. And I know a lot of people say like grades don't matter, and I know it's easy for people to be like, you're just saying that because you've already been through it, but like in the grand scheme of things, your grades really do not matter. So like, don't try to get A's and everything because it genuinely does not matter. That being said, your first semester is going to be very hard. Now, this is where it kind of gets into like, it might be school specific, but at Columbia, they stuff all of the core classes into the first semester. At least they did in 2021. I don't know if it's changed a little bit, but in 2021, they stuffed all your core classes into that first semester. It is absolutely awful. And I know people say like, oh, it's really rough. No, I'm telling you, it's awful. Like, it's really stressful. There's assignments, multiple assignments due like in a day, in a week. Like, it's a very high stress time. Once you get to December of your fall term, smooth sailing. It is smooth sailing. You get to set your schedule after that. You get to pick how many classes you're taking after that. You have full control and full reign over your MBA experience after that first semester. So that first semester, it's a grind, it's a lot of stress, it's a lot of anxiety, but once you get through it, you'll be fine. Now, when it comes to those like core first semester assignments, a lot of those assignments, if not all of them, are going to be with what's called your learning team. Now, what most schools do is they break the entire class into, let's say, like 6 to 10 groups. That group at Columbia is called your cluster. I think other schools call it different things, but at Columbia it's called your cluster. That's who you take all of your core classes with. Now, within that cluster, they break it into even smaller groups of usually like 5 to, let's say, 7 people. That's what's at Columbia called your learning team. You're gonna do all of your core assignments with that learning team. My biggest advice to you when you're working on these assignments, do not try to do all these assignments together as a learning team. Do not do it. We tried to do it for like our first month as a learning team, and it was not working. It's so hard to get everyone's schedule aligned, especially if you're like recruiting during the first semester too. It's way too much. My advice to you is to go around the circle, figure out what everyone's background is. I came from tech, I came from strategy, I had marketing experience, and I was really good at stats. We had a CPA on our team as well. We had someone who came from Wall Street on our team as well. So when it came to like those assignments, we all took lead and took point on an assignment in each of those classes. So like stats assignments, that was my bag. Marketing assignments, that was my bag. Finance assignments, Wall Street did that. CPA was the accounting person, and then we would all get together once a week and be like, hey, you know, here's what it is that we came up with, and we would walk through the stuff together so that we could actually understand it. But we did not try to like sit there with the problem set in front of us and try to solve every problem together, because it just was not effective and it was a huge time suck. So don't do that. Also, on the academic side, once you get past that first fall semester at Columbia, we have what's called block weeks. I know other schools do this and it's just called a different thing, but a block week is essentially when you come to campus a week early, and you can either take a full week-long class or you can take a half a week-long class and just knock some credits out. I cannot recommend block weeks enough. It is literally 5 days of 9 to 5 exhaustion. Like, it is literally like you're sitting in this room 9 to 5 staring at the screen, just like exhausted. You will definitely thank yourself later on in the semester when you only have to take 3 or 4 classes and your schedule is just free because you took a block weeks. I cannot recommend block weeks enough. I took block weeks every single semester because I just really value the time that I would be able to like spend in other places that was not campus if I didn't need to. Okay, so moving on to the career side of things. If you wrote something in your essay about how you wanted to go into consulting, you're going into investment banking after business school, and you really needed business school to like get those skills to do that, and you change your mind, that is fine. Literally no one is holding you to any type of standard of, oh, she didn't do what she said she was gonna do in her essay. No one cares. Literally no one cares. The whole purpose of business school is to figure out like what it is that you wanna do, learn what it is that you need to learn, explore, figure out what other people, like meet people. Like, it's the whole purpose of business school is to figure it out. So do not feel like, oh my God, I'm not doing what I said I was gonna do in my essay. Nobody cares. Now, when it comes to recruiting, it's going to look very different depending on what industry you are recruiting for. If you are not consulting, investment banking or big tech, a lot of it is like do it yourself. And I can't remember exactly what the word is, which is crazy because I was like a whole career management advisor. But it's essentially like do it yourself. You are finding the jobs to apply to on your own. You're finding alums to talk to and connect with on your own. Like it's not something that Columbia particularly manages. I feel like at Columbia for big tech, it is Google, Apple, Amazon, and I think I'm missing one, but essentially in a lot of those instances, companies will reach out to Columbia and say, you know, we're doing one big interview on this day, coordinate it on your end, and Columbia will coordinate it. Outside of those companies, it's not really like that. Use the job board, turn your LinkedIn alerts on. Like it's going to be very critical that you're getting as much information as you can. I turned my LinkedIn job alerts on, and what I did, this is the second tip, is I made a list of companies. My big thing was that I wanted to go into media. So I did like tech media companies, I did music companies, I did social media companies. I made a whole list of companies, and I took like 10-15 minutes to go manually select each of those companies and click them, and then I saved the search, and it saved a search of all of those different companies, and it gave me a daily report of what jobs they put out there. You only have to do that once, and after that you're getting a constant refresh of the different jobs that these companies that you're interested in working at are putting out all at once without having to actually search. When it comes to recruiting, I think every school is a little bit different. Some schools are like what you call like pretty competitive and like cagey when it comes to interview stuff. My advice would be to just help people where you can help them, because people will return the favor if you help them. That's really all there is to it. Now, the next bucket I really want to touch on is like the well-being social aspect of business school. My number one tip here is that you have to get comfortable with FOMO. You cannot expect to be a million places at once. You can't expect to like not miss anything. You have to be comfortable with FOMO, because you will get pulled 1,000,005 different directions, and like some people do it, it will really just stress you out. Like you don't need to be at every party. A lot of the parties are the same thing over and over again. It's fine. Like it's fine. You have to be okay with just missing out on some things sometimes for the sake of your mental and just keeping everything together. In the same vein, you have to protect your time. I know when club day comes around, you're gonna want to sign up for every single club. I know a lot of people are like, you have to, you know, sign up for these leadership positions to like be considered for your career. One, I don't think that that's true, but two, do not take on like more than 2 leadership roles and or responsibilities. Take it from me as someone who I think took on like 3 or 4 during business school. You're gonna look around one day at business school and you are going to envy every single person that did not sign up for anything, because they're actually enjoying business school and you are stressed out trying to plan events and plan things. In moderation, it's fine. 1 to 2 is fine. One thing that I definitely think I could have done a little bit better in business school is just branching out and trying to meet different people from different backgrounds. I think as a Black girl, my natural inclination, like my natural magnetic pull, is to go find the Black people. That's where I'm most comfortable. That's definitely my comfort zone. The Black people were great, but I think that there was a lot that I maybe missed out on, or just like a part of the experience that I didn't really capitalize on enough, because most of the people that I hung out with was just BBSA. And once again, BBSA was great, no issues with that. But there's so many dope people that you're gonna meet in your classroom. Like the more people that you talk to, you're gonna realize like you might have some heavy hitters in your business school class without even really realizing that. We had a lot of people whose parents were very high up at like really big companies, like were owners of like really big companies. Like you really never know who it is that you're talking to until you actually start talking to them. So that's one thing that I really wish I would have done a lot better in business school, is just like really making an effort to reach out to people from different backgrounds, to build community with people from different backgrounds. It was really hard for me, especially as an introvert, because it's just already really hard for me to like expel social energy. I think that that's something that you should like definitely keep in mind, is that you need to branch out. You need to meet people, especially during that first semester when you're trying to get to know like your learning team, your cluster. Like there are a lot of different relationships and like different communities to be built there. I think a lot of times, especially when the clubs come around, you start building communities within those too, especially if you are recruiting for like a smaller niche industry. I recruited for media, so like after a while you really start seeing the same people in your media classes, and you're really, you know, building a community just off strength that like you're taking the same classes and you're in the same club. So there's a lot of different ways to branch out and meet people. It's just something that I should have done a lot better job of, that I probably, if I could go back, would do it differently. The last group of tips I want to give out is surrounding travel. Now, a lot of people have a lot of different opinions on travel, and I want to preface this by saying that I don't think any financial advisor would recommend what I'm about to tell you to do. My biggest tip is to take out the student loans and go on the trips. Go on the trips. Someone recently asked me to run through all the different trips that I went on in business school, and I want to say I overdid it. I completely overdid it. You don't have to overdo it, but I think I can run through it. I went to Puerto Rico my first semester. This was our big class trip. The whole class 2023 for the most part went. The next semester I went to Guatemala and El Salvador for spring break, and then I also went to Colombia for our congrats, the first year is done trip. Fall semester of year 2, I went to London, I went to Amsterdam, and then I went to the Catskills in New York just for a cabin trip. And then the following semester I went to India for a not study abroad because I wasn't getting any credit for it, but a kind of exploration trip. I went to South Africa with a couple of students that were from South Africa and curated this whole trip for us. I went to Jamaica with people who were from Jamaica and wanted to show us Kingston. And then as a graduation trip with a couple of my friends, I went to Singapore and Bali. I overdid it. I don't think that you need to go on the same number of trips that I went on, but me personally, if you know me in real life, if you know my content, I love to travel. It's something that I really enjoy. And so I really do think that it is worth it to at least try to go on one trip a semester. The money, number one, is going to return. But number two, you are never, ever, 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 ever going to get this 2 years in your life again where you do not really have real responsibilities. You're never going to get 2 years of your life where you do not have to clock in to anybody's 9 to 5 if you don't want to. You are really there just to experience life and to experience school and to experience your class. I cannot recommend enough. Go on the trips, meet the new people. When you're traveling the world with people, you really just start to build connections. I honestly think it's such a good way to experience life, but also just get the most out of business school at the same time. And on the same vein, do not wait on people to go on these trips. One thing that really surprised me about business school is that I assumed everyone was type A, and a lot of people are type A, but it's just not when it comes to travel. Everyone is super last minute when it comes to travel, and it really just completely blew my mind. There were oftentimes people would be oh, I decided today I'm gonna go to XYZ country in a week. And it was just if you would just plan it, you could have saved a lot of money and all these different things. So one of the things that I would definitely recommend is to just one, either just sign up and go by yourself and meet people when you go. But especially when it comes to these trips where there's a set number of people who can go. For example, a lot of these trips are through booking agencies. Colombia was a booking agency, South Africa was a booking agency. You put your name on the list, you put your deposit down, and then you can go. Well, a lot of those trips, they have a maximum number of people who can sign up. And so my year, it was South Africa and Japan. Both of those were really popular places. I think Japan's wait list filled up within a week. You really have to be willing to trust that you can just make the move on your own and then meet people in the country or in your class throughout. So yeah, don't forgo any travel experiences waiting on people, because a lot of people are just last minute, and sometimes if you just book something, they'll follow suit. And if not, that's fine. You'll be fine. Solo travel is not that bad. But those are the tips that I had. I really was just reflecting on my time in business school, especially being a year out. There was just a lot that I gained from that experience and a lot that I wish I could do differently. My biggest tip of all, enjoy this 2 years. Seriously, enjoy this 2 years. I think about business school. I would give anything. I would literally give anything to go back to business school and to be living my carefree life on the government's money over there. I promise you I would. You have to really just take this experience and invest in yourself, invest in your classmates, invest in the relationships that you're going to build. And it's going to be worth it. I think I'm going to do a video a little bit later on how I navigated the application process and the GMAT and applying and all that. I might do that in a later video, but if you have any questions about my MBA experience or just my experience at Columbia in general, leave a comment below. Maybe I'll do a follow-up video or I'll just respond in the comments, I guess. But thank you so much for watching, and bye. See you next time.